Good morning and welcome back to the Brutally Honest Loan Officer podcast. I am Derick Brown and joining me is Stephen Brock. Stephen, say hi.
Hello, everybody.
And we are both loan officers with the mortgage firm here in Florida. How's your week been, man?
Good. So our kids went back to school last Wednesday. I think here a lot of people are going back today.
Yep.
So
That's
it
my
was,
life.
yeah, they
Today
start
was the
today.
first day of school today.
Woo!
My daughter is now in VPK. So she is going to school with my wife. My wife's a teacher at Wilson Elementary, and my daughter Audrey is super excited to go to mommy school. And she looked adorable today. And then my son Bennett put together that he and Sissy no longer go to the same school. He was not happy about it. He kept on saying sissy, sissy, sissy when we were walking up to his daycare. His favorite teacher was right there. He didn't care. He was not about that life. So
Get used to it.
And I mean, the first day of school with students for my wife. So Godspeed, Tony. And all the other teachers out there that are starting. I
God bless you.
You have a smooth start to the school year. Because it's super stressful and it's all new and you don't know, she might know a little bit about the kids, but nothing like substantial or how to really deal with.
You don't know them yet.
Yeah, like who's the jerk? Who's the nice kid? Who I don't know.
Yeah,
You don't know that yet.
You don't
have to find out, I guess.
I mean, Bella's one of the teachers we already knew pretty well, is friends with my wife, and she's new at the school. And then one of the other teachers, the math teacher, she was a first grade math teacher. So Isabella had her 2 years ago. So now she's a third grade math teacher. So like she already has a little bit insight. And then, everybody knows my son because they see, when I pick up my daughter. So they kind of know who Joey is already.
Right.
He gets no benefit of like, hey, I can be sneaky or whatever kind of thing. Like they have no clue who I am. No,
Yeah.
They know exactly who you are at all times. So
That's funny. That's probably how it'll be for Bennett.
yeah.
But I don't know.
All
I mean,
right.
they'll go to elementary school with, my wife teaches there. So I don't know if that's good thing, bad thing. I would hope it makes them act better, versus like if they're bad, mommy's gonna come across the school and tear you up. I don't know.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
All right. So what's our topic though today?
Well, I recently posted on Facebook that I had done an application with a borrower a little bit late one night and then pre-approved. And by noon the next day, they were under contract. So one of my friends on Facebook had commented like, this would be a good podcast topic. And I was like, you know what, Jason, you're right. So we're going to talk about like how quickly can you get pre-approved and under contract, but also just kind of give some insight on how you can make transactions a little bit smoother. But just sometimes speed helps. Being able to close early or quickly can help you get under contract. So we're just going to go through, some of those. Yeah, that was probably the quickest turnaround I've ever had from starting the application to being under contract for a home. And I think it was like 15 hours. Usually somebody gets pre-approved, they're kind of shopping around, a couple of weeks go by, they find the house, submit an offer, go under contract. I mean, that's a little bit more normal. And then just with inventory being a little bit lower right now, that's getting dragged out, even farther sometimes. We have somebody get pre-approved and then a couple months later they're under contract.
Yeah. So sometimes we see a lot longer timelines around now. So having it that quickly is amazing. So
15 hours.
They had great credit, great income, just very easy to do.
Nope, they were self-employed, had bad credit, and no money. No, I'm just kidding. No, kind of. I mean, they're good buyers. They have good credit, good income. They have money saved. They're shopping, like the house that they found was within their budget. So it just it was somewhat easy on that end, but more of it was we did the application together. They understood, they asked questions, and then they immediately submitted all the documentation that I needed so that I could quickly review it. And then, like, it's not like we sent out a bogus pre-approval letter, like, oh, this sounds good, guys.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, you said it sounds good, so here's your pre-approval letter. You see that
right.
all the time.
I don't operate like that. But yeah, I mean, they did everything kind of the right way. So
So I mean, it's kind of like when I try to explain to clients over and over again. They're like, "Oh, how long does it take to get pre-approved?" And I'm like, "Well,
up to you.
we're 15, 20 minutes on this conversation, maybe 30, going over everything, getting the application in." And I'm like, "Then it's when you give me the documents." I was like, "You
Right.
take 3 days, then hey, guess what? Your pre-approval is going to take 3 days. Like I can't pre-approve you without it. I can kind of get a general idea where you're at, but until we can verify all that information, you have no clue with it."
Right. Yeah. So I mean, that's if somebody's a salary position, a little bit easier. But there's a lot of times where somebody's like, well, yeah, I'm full time, and then we get pay stubs, and you're not working full time. Like, what? So now, does your employer consider this full time? Is full time like at 36 hours? A lot of nurses work 36 hours, and that's considered full time. One of the main requirements for Hometown Heroes, one of the popular down payment assistance programs we're doing, is that one of the borrowers has to be full time for a employer that has brick and mortar in Florida.
Yep.
So we've got to verify that. I want to see it. Like I want to, look at your pay stubs to make sure that you are full time, and if you're not, you may not qualify for that loan. So
and as you said, full time is determined by the employer. The employer determines how many hours is considered full time for them. So it's not,
right.
The standard. Everybody thought, oh, it's 40 hours. And then I think Hometown Heroes at one time dropped it like to 36, 37. Said, hey, that is it. Now it's what the employer says. So, I mean, if you work 1 hour and they say you're full time, you could technically be full time. I don't know whether you're going to qualify, but
I think somebody's going to call that out. But
they might. But if they say it's full time, it's on them.
So, right. So, and there's differences. Like there might be lenders out there that, they do the application, things sound good, and then they send a pre-qual letter. Like a pre-qualification just means that most of the documents have not been verified.
Yeah.
Or they had a talk about credit, but credit wasn't actually pulled.
Yeah.
So let's dive into more so what's needed for a pre-approval letter.
So the analogy I always use, I was taught this a long time ago, was ICE. It was the easiest way to remember, and that is income, credit, and then equity or / assets. How much liquid cash or savings and stuff that do you have? And we mash that all up with a loan application, and then we can be good to go with it. So those are the main topics we're looking at. So you have the income, credit, and equity. How much money do you have saved up?
Right. Dude, I'll tell you, for one, almost every single time I do like an application with somebody, and they're like, okay, now what documents do you need? I'm like, okay, and let's just say they're W-2 employee, right? So driver's license, pay stubs, W-2s, bank statement. And they're like, and what else? And I'm like, oh, no, for right now, that's what I need. Now, sometimes that leads to more, but I mean, that's it. They're like, really? Like that's it. Pay stubs, W-2s, bank statements, and depending on where we're at in the month, if we're about like at the end of July, I might ask for June bank statement. No, I'm going to need July in a minute. So typically it's 2 months bank statements. Sometimes conventional loans you can get by with one. But I mean, we start there and, that's it. They're like, oh my God, that's so easy. Okay. Well, then why does it take some people a week to get me everything?
It is a bit the simple. I would say the people that are salary or not even just salary, and that aren't self-employed. So they're employed by a company. It is very simple to get the documentation. Sometimes we talk about their commission and stuff like that. Hey, you might need to show a little bit more on the commission side or stuff that's not salary or your hourly
right.
stuff.
So anything outside of your normal like rate of pay.
Yeah.
If you get overtime, bonus, commissions, usually we're going to look for a 2-year history for that.
And how do we do that?
Ideally. So then we could also order a verification of employment. Sometimes that takes a little bit longer, or you can provide year-end pay stubs.
Yeah. So you could basically provide 2 months of pay stubs, the last of 2023, the last of 2022 pay stub, and we can confirm your income on that part.
Right.
So, well, what I don't want is our self-employed borrowers that are out there. Everybody thinks like, oh, they're going, it's going to be a lot more. Well, Not necessarily, like we need your tax returns, the business or your personal ones, or both, depending on how you have it set up. So we're gonna need the last 2 years to calculate your income. Like there's some more calculations and paperwork we gotta do on our end, but those are the other things that we need. Now, if you don't qualify that way, there are, of course, if you need bank statement loans where you need 12 months or 24 months of bank statements, like, yeah, it could be seem like a hassle, but I would say 99% of the population can go
I
online and
can log
download all of
into
them
my bank account, like,
and download every bank statement for
and
the
yeah,
last.
just okay. So I need July and June, and you just go back 12 months, and then you send me 12 months of bank statements
Yeah,
at
not that hard.
30 minutes tops.
Yeah. I
So
will
yeah,
say is once we get all this information, that is what helps us determine your pre-approved. What
right.
we talked about on the application is what you would kind of like, hey, I want to be around this payment a month, or I want to look at a 4, 5, 6, 700, whatever amount of house is how much I'm looking to put down. All that sounds great of what you're trying to do, but
Right.
we can't actually determine it until once we pull your credit, we look at your credit report, self-explanatory on that. What does that look like? And then verify your income and your assets. So I just had a client refer to me that got pre-approved, quotations pre-approved by an online lender, and they met a realtor friend of mine, and they said, "Hey, I want you to, talk to Stephen. Let's just have a double check on it. Let's just look at everything." I started going over the application and, hey, these are the documents I'm going to need and everything like that. And she was like, I didn't have to send that to the other lender. And I'm like, well, dude, you're not pre-approved. Like
Yeah.
you have a piece of paper that might say you are, but you're not. And she finally did send everything in, and it was she was significantly she was pre-approved for a lot less than she thought she was going to be, which could have been a huge problem for her when she went if she went under contract on a house for the price that the online lender told her that she was pre-approved for, and she wasn't. So, she would have to either pay for inspection, appraisal, just to get it all through and then find out, hey, you actually don't qualify for this home. That makes the realtors look bad on that situation
Well,
with
nobody
it.
wants to go through that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That,
I've been through the same situation recently too. I have a person that kind of came to me for a second opinion. And then when I started asking for, certain documents and tax returns because they're self-employed, you know, basically this person was pre-approved for like 400,000, and I'm just like, I don't see how. I cannot for the life of me figure out how you were pre-approved for this much money. And her 2023 tax returns weren't even done yet. Like they had just gotten done, which showed significantly more income, and she was pre-approved for 300 because we have to use a 12 or 2-year history, in the average of it. So it's just, I don't know. I don't want anybody to ever be misled. I love being the second opinion, but sometimes, I don't have great news. I don't know what this other lender was doing. I I don't know. So, and I can pretty much guarantee when somebody has a pre-approval letter from me, they're going to close if they stay within that amount.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And we don't try to, I guess the only time I'll really try to push someone's DTI like to the max is if maybe there's another person in the household that isn't on the loan that will
yeah,
be contributing. Sometimes we have a husband and wife situation where the wife's going to be on the loan, but the husband isn't because of credit or, new self-employment, something like that. There's
yeah.
reasons why we keep somebody off. And I might push it there knowing that there's a, second set of income there. Otherwise, I don't know. I don't want somebody to live outside their means.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing we see a lot is I see a lot of bait and switch. People want to hear lower interest rates. So whoever gives them the lowest interest rate on their pre-approval is who they're trying to go with. Even okay, let's just say they got all the documentation both ways, so we're past that part. They give them the pre-approval, and it's a lot lower rate than anybody can look at. What I have seen a lot lately is they're quoting a low rate, and I'm like, that's great. They can quote whatever. I can put whatever rate you want on that pre-approval. Doesn't mean you can actually get it and lock it in.
Right.
It's not worth anything in that case. It's not an actual realistic rate
Right.
be set on there. So I'm seeing that a lot lately. I had a client recently that she came to me, we were second opinion on it, looked at it and said, hey, like to get that rate, like I'm gonna have to charge you 2 points. There's just they're charging you, I think it was like 3/4 of a point. I was like, there's no way I can do that. So if they can do that, run with it. She signed all the documents with them on a Friday. By the next Monday, they wanted to resend documents to her and say, hey, we need to charge you 2.25 point now for this rate. Thinking that, and she had like 2 weeks of closing. Almost, I feel like they were trying, they legitimately bait and switched her on it. And she came back to me and it's like, I don't care if you charge me 5 points, I'm gonna go with you. Whatever you tell me it is, that's what I'm gonna go with, because they lied to me. They straight up lied to me. So I don't care. I'll just do whatever you say to do with it. And you see it all the time. They think that it can switch so easily once you're during the process that sometimes it's too late for you to switch. She had a short closing 2 weeks, and then of course the other lenders telling her like, oh, they can't close it that quickly. They can't do all this. We already have all this stuff done. And I'm like, this is not a hard loan to close. You just shouldn't have lied to her up front.
Right.
Do the rate numbers kind of thing.
Well, and I had a customer one time reach out, realtor referred me, and like just going through everything. He was self-employed. He knew it. He wrote everything off. He made good money, but wrote everything off. So on paper, not a whole lot of income there. But his grandmother had a decent amount of money in IRA. And so she was willing to co-sign with him, non-occupying co-borrower. I was like, oh, this is great. IRA distribution, it's super easy. We'll go this route. And he's like, okay, fantastic. Finds a house. I call the listing agent, explain everything. We can close quickly or longer, whatever. Listing agent loves everything we have to say. She's familiar with our company. So offer gets accepted. We go under contract. Then we're reviewing the contract, looking to lock in the rate. He's like, by the way, I've got a friend that's a mortgage broker, and he says he can get me a lower rate. Oh, okay. Like, you bring this up now after I've done all this stuff, working over the weekend to get you under contract, calling the listing agent, all this stuff. But okay, sure. And sure enough, a little bit lower rate than what I was able to do. And so he ended up going with them. And then about 3 weeks later, he calls me. He's like, hey, man, I'm not sure what's going on, but like, this guy says that there's just no way you can do this loan. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, no way you're going to have it approved Fannie Mae or whatever route you were trying to go. And I'm like, it was weird for him to even say Fannie Mae. Like, this is clearly what this other person said.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, well, we can, and I will. So, I mean, do you still want to buy the house? He's like, yeah. Okay. So then we got him closed in 3 weeks. Done. Super easy. And he did reach out to me at one point too, like at the beginning of that second start. And he's like, well, about the rate. And I was like, rates, and they hadn't changed during this time period. And I was like, my rate's still the same. And he's like, well, the other guy that can't do the loan. That's not even a real rate. He can't do the loan. And so I was like, go back to him. And he's like, well, and I'm like, what do you want me to say? The guy can't do the loan. And so we locked in and ended up closing, and he was super happy, super grateful at the end, but
I feel like there's a lot of people that they don't know what they're doing out there. They're the market's tougher, so they're just spitballing things out there and like hoping it, and then it comes down to they just don't know their stuff. They don't know the guidelines. They don't know how to look at the rates correctly. They're bait and switching people on purpose or not. They just don't understand it correctly until it goes further up to underwriting or a processor, and they're like, oh wait, hold on. Here's all the things that you need to do to make sure this happens. It just doesn't. It's how they're still licensed. I don't know. Don't understand it, but
because they get by, I guess.
Yep.
I don't know. I will say that, specifically for our company, we have in-house underwriting. And I think that that's one of the things that makes a huge difference on turn times, because right now I think our underwriting turn times are 24 to 48 hours. So we send it to underwriting
without asking, hey, I need to get this reviewed right away.
Oh yeah, there's no rush requests or anything. Like, that's just our normal turn times right now. Granted, as we start to get busier, and last month we closed most loans we have so far this year, so we're starting to get busier. But I've also seen some underwriters working on the weekends. Thank you, underwriters working on the weekends.
Yeah,
but
I seen approval come through on the weekend. I'm like, oh, guess they're working on the weekend right now.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I think that that makes a huge difference. And we have the ability to talk to like our team of underwriters ahead of time. Like, so if
Yeah.
we've got like a weird situation or, maybe different kind of income or something like that, like we can go to them, and explain the situation and get a legitimate answer from an underwriter. And then we save that to our file when we submit, like, hey, here's where we already talked about this, great.
Yeah. You basically can get the person approved up front. So it's just worrying about the house now.
Right.
I mean, that's definitely something we do on somebody that like, hey, I don't, you have iffy income questions, maybe, hey, I'm thinking they're showing this much overtime, underwriting thinking this much overtime, and you just get it reviewed and say, hey, this is what it needs to be at, whatever the case is. So it makes it, it's just
Right.
setting up the expectation, like we do, like you said, we started going on to stuff about contracts. So we talked about the pre-approval, very easy to get stuff. Once we get all the documentation, we can get you pre-approved. We can get you an answer that this is what you're looking at doing.
Right.
It's having all the correct documentation in a timely manner to do that. That's all that is. Quick application over the phone, discuss everything, get all the documentation in, and then we set up a long consultation going over, all the numbers with you.
Right.
Now, going under contract is a different story. You were talking about having in-house underwriting, which makes things a lot faster, but what about appraisals? Do you rush appraisals? Do you not rush appraisals? How do you see that?
Right now, I don't think our appraisers have been too busy, so we haven't necessarily needed a rush. We just did have a storm come through, so we've had to do a couple like final inspection type things. But for the most part, I mean, we're getting them back in 7 to 10 days. So if that's just the expectation when we're going under contract and we have an appraisal contingency, or financing contingency, we want those things done beforehand. But writing a contract saying that we'll have, the appraisal back in 5 days, we're just not doing that. We don't need to right now.
Yeah.
So I think it's been like a 2 week appraisal contingency, super easy. We'll have the appraisal back by then. We use
And
our
even
local
if you do
appraisers.
have to rush appraisal, sometimes it's only like 150, maybe 200 more. It's not like a tremendous amount. Like, hey, I need this back in 3 or 4 days, and you put that money out there, and the appraiser's like, yep, we'll take it, boom, as long as I can. I had one where we put a rush on it, and the appraiser kicked it back and said, hey, I don't need a rush fee. I'm already in that community on Thursday. If the seller will let me in that Thursday, I'll just knock out two of them.
That's
So it was
awesome.
like they kicked it back and said, hey, I'll just pay a regular. I'll have it back to you in the same time frame. It's like, all right, great.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's another great thing of having your own appraiser pool of all these, qualified appraisers that we basically vet and make sure that they're good. That, you could go to a company or a lender that they hire an appraisal management company, which
Yeah.
means that company makes its money by hiring the cheapest appraiser. If you pay $450 for an appraiser for an appraisal and they hire $100 appraiser, that company's keeping $350.
Right.
Where we give all the money to the appraiser. If you pay $450, the appraiser is getting $450. I think there might be like
Right.
some small like $25 fee, but they're getting the majority of that money.
Yeah.
So you
I
actually get
think,
a qualified appraiser out there.
yeah. The other thing too, like, so while we're going through this, appraisal's been ordered, we're waiting on the appraisal site inspection to be done. We're prepping you for underwriting, and that's where like we'll reach out and ask for a couple other documents based on like we pull a fraud report, sometimes a name association, address association, things like that or whatever. But maybe a couple of weeks have gone by and now your July bank statement is available, and that's going to show your EMD coming out. Well, we're going to ask for that. Don't ask me why we're asking for it. Like when we're asked for documents, do your best to get them back to us as soon as possible. The sooner you can get that docs back to us, the sooner we can submit to underwriting, get the conditional approval, and then just sit there happy and wait for closing day to come.
Yep.
And because I've recently had somebody at Derick, like, why do we have to show the EMD coming out? Well, due to the Patriot Act, we have to source all funds that are used to purchase a primary or purchase a home. And so
They want to make sure you're not money laundering. That's why.
Yeah. It's not me. That's just,
That's the government
right now.
And that's what they want to see.
So
do they review every single thing? No, but if we ever got audited, they're going to look.
Right.
Like, so that's, so yeah, I always explain, there's a lot of things. And then the same thing is I saw somebody post, I think it was a couple of months ago, but they're like, oh, we can close FHA loans in 5 days. I'm like, no, you can't. You
No.
legally cannot. The Fed says from disclosure to closing date is 7 days. There's a lot of times that we were recently done with a loan in, I think, 4 days. We picked it up, got it from somebody. The other lender was messing up. We got it, had it disclosed, and we were ready to close in 4 days, but legally could not close until the seventh day. I think the seventh day was a Sunday, so it actually moved to the eighth day for
Right.
it to happen. But like, we were ready to go in 4 days, but yeah, you can't legally close until that seventh day.
And I took over a loan for a couple. They were buying their first house, and I talked to them before. They went a different route, you know. And so then they called me and they're like, "We're getting denied," and I'm like, "What? What do you mean?" She's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. And so I talked to the buyer's agent, listing agent. We were going to take over the loan, get it closed, you know. And they're like, "Well, how long do you need?" I mean, does everybody want to be completely stressed out like they are right now, or if we just give me 2 weeks, 2 weeks, and we'll smoothly get everything done? You know, and so they're like, okay, we can do that. And I think it was like they gave us like 13 days or something like that. Close on time. You know, so it's
It's
just setting the
amazing what,
expectations.
I mean, this overall episode is communication.
Yeah.
It's amazing. If you're communicating with your loan officer, your lender, with everybody on the file, everything goes smoothly. Like, by communication, I mean, hey, I'm looking to get pre-approved. We go over the application, we talk. Okay, communicating all the documents we need, and you're sending them in. Same thing when you go under contract. Hey, here's everything. We're communicating back and forth of what's going on, understanding everything. Hey, when we need something, because i.e. it needs to be updated because, hey, you sent me your July 11th bank statement and today is August 12th. I know you most likely have a new bank statement and we're closing the end of this week or next week. Yeah, we need that to be updated. If there is an updated one, like underwriting can see that they should have an updated one in there.
Right.
So it's just, I think overall, it's just having a good level of communication on both sides, and things can go very, very smoothly. Establishing the correct timeline. There's people when I talk to, like, hey, I'm not going to be able to get you all the documents until this weekend. I'm like, that's fine. I'm not able to finalize your pre-approval until you send all the documents. So whenever you want to send them in, just know that's when we're going to be able to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. So don't call me on Thursday. Like, how's it looking? Still waiting on you.
Yep.
What else do you want me to say?
Yeah.
You know it. But yeah, I mean, communication is key throughout the entire process.
Yeah.
What else you got? Anything else? I think we covered most of it.
Yeah, I think that was it.
Communicate, supply your docs, stay within your budget, set real expectations. You're good.
That's it.
Well, thank you for listening to another episode of the Brutally Honest Loan Officer Podcast. I am Derick Brown, and with me, as always, is
me, Stephen Brock.
Thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions, reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, hope you have a great week. And good luck to all the students going back to school, all the teachers, praying for you as well.
And parents sitting at home in peace.
Yeah, or crying because their kids. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. All right. See you guys.
All right. See ya.